WTAP looks back on this day in history in today's We the People, celebrating 250 years.
Near the end of a week-long national salute to Americans who served in the Vietnam War, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial was dedicated in Washington, D.C. on this day in 1982 after a march to its site by thousands of veterans of the conflict. The long-awaited memorial was a simple V-shaped black granite wall inscribed with the names of the 57,939 Americans who died in the conflict, arranged in order of death, not rank, as was common in other memorials.
A moment to reflect, a time to remember. Join WTAP in celebrating We the People. Watch This Day in History every day on WTAP News at 6, proudly sponsored by WVU Medicine Camden Clark.